Hi everyone, I'm Max from AFM AERO. Welcome to the Pilot Training Connect podcast, where we interview individuals from the pilot training industry to learn more about their organizations and their views of the industry. Every week, we will invite an industry leader to sit down with us to share their knowledge and views. And this week, I have the great pleasure to be joined by one of the most passionate individuals that I know, Rizwan Taj, licensing manager from Global Flight Training Group, Airways Aviation. Welcome to the Pilot Training Connect podcast, Rizwan.
Thank you so much, Max. It's always wonderful talking to you.
It was great seeing you the other day at the Arab Aviation Summit. I think it was a fantastic place for people from the Middle East who are working in the aviation industry to connect again. And it was great to see Airways Aviation's presence there as well.
Well, yeah, definitely. There's so much happening in the aviation industry and everything's happening so quick. I think these aviation conferences are quite important to, start connecting. And one of the best things what I thought about the event was how relaxed everybody was, and we had none of those social distancing, and we did not have to worry so much about, which kind of made me feel like we're going back to the old days. We did not have any of those crazy restrictions, and it felt good to be shaking hands with people again in events. So that was something which I was really happy about.
Yeah, I think for anyone who is listening or who is watching, just so you know, Rizwan and myself were both located in the United Arab Emirates, in Dubai and the UAE, and recovery of the aviation industry here, specifically in the UAE, has been absolutely phenomenal. The second airport in Dubai is being opened already after next month due to a high amount of traffic going through the main airport of Dubai. So we're seeing a really, really rapid recovery, which I think is a lot quicker than most have expected. But Rizwan, I think everyone is quite curious to hear more about Airways Aviation and about yourself.
Thank you so much, Max. Definitely. So let me just start with a basic introduction, right? So my name is Rizwan Taj. I'm one of the pilot instructors. I've worked in a few different departments with Airways Aviation. I started off as a theory knowledge instructor. I also served as the chief theory knowledge instructor of Airways Aviation Montenegro for 2.5 years. I have also worked as the admissions manager in UK and Spain. Now I'm also working on a bunch of different things. I am still the admissions consultant for Airways Aviation Australia, France, and all of our other locations. But right now, one of my major roles, one of my most important roles, is the licensee manager. We're setting up new licensees, we're setting up new foundation schools across the globe. We're actually expanding our network, and I'm currently managing all of our licensees across the globe. So that's one of my current roles. And to give you a short introduction about Airways Aviation, now, I've been with Airways Aviation for the last 7.5 years, and I think genuinely it's one of those best schools. We really care about the students. Airways Aviation has been around for more than 35 years. It originally started off back in Australia. We have one of the most beautiful facilities in Australia, Gold Coast International Airport. We have another location in Lismore. We also have our head office in France, south of France, to be very specific, Montpellier International Airport, one of the most beautiful places in France. We've got our massive facility there. We are a European YASA license provider, and we also provide the Australian CASA license. And then we also have our newest location in Turkey. We have also our location in Lebanon, where we provide the foundation course, the private pilot license, and so on. So Airways Aviation has a global fleet of 45 plus aircrafts. We specifically are quite proud about the fact that we have a number of Diamond aircrafts. In fact, the Diamond Aircraft Manufacturing Company themselves came up with this beautiful press release 1.5 years, 2 years ago that Airways Aviation has the highest number of Diamond aircrafts in Europe. And I think it was the first in Europe, and I believe it was second worldwide. So yes, this is what we are proud about. We don't just do pilot training. Airways Aviation Academy, as we say, we are the global educators in aviation. And we literally provide everything in aviation: pilot training, cabin crew, aircraft maintenance, ground handling. So literally, we've covered up every single thing. We give you all the way from, we take you all the way from zero to an airline transfer pilot license. We provide you with an integrated pilot license, if that's what you want. We also provide you with a modular pilot training courses, if that's what you want. We have flexible pilot training courses in Turkey and Lebanon, for example, where you can do just a PPL if that's what you want to try and see if this is the right industry for you. So the way I look at it is, we are a one-stop shop in aviation. If you want to be a cabin crew, we have our cabin crew training center in Montpellier, France. If you've got, the aircraft maintenance and all of that. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, obviously I can go on and on, but that's a general introduction to Airways Aviation Academy. We also have partnerships with universities such as Southern Cross University and also Griffith University, where students have the option to do Airways Aviation pilot training courses combined with the bachelor's training, so that you're actually getting a double qualification at the same time. And similarly, we also have the same arrangement in Montpellier. We are working with the MBS Montpellier Business School, where we offer a similar double qualification. Students have the option to do their ATPL license with us in the south of France in Montpellier International Airport, and they can also continue to do their bachelor's degree. And that's one of our most newest and most recent accomplishments in France.
I think from my understanding of Airways Aviation and all of the years that I've known the group, right, it is most probably one of the most well-established flight training groups or pilot training groups. I know you do all of these other aviation training, or you offer this other aviation training components as well, but the main focus is around pilot training. Really having this global coverage, covering, having a presence in bases and operations in Europe, in the Middle East, and in Asia, specifically also in Australia. And I think exactly like you've mentioned, high quality fleet, and covering a broad range of spectrum. So if I'm not mistaken, Airways Aviation has trained quite a few airlines and B2B customers before as well, right?
Definitely. In fact, if you check out our website under, the partnerships and so on, you'll actually see partners and associates. We've actually worked with a number of airlines in the Middle East and in Europe and Australia as well. We've had some of the big names, we even, going back to the 2014, 2016 days, the Dubai office, Airways Aviation Dubai office used to conduct all the compass assessment tests for Emirates, literally the Emirates airline. Their candidates were filtered in our centers in Dubai. We would literally conduct their compass tests. So basically they outsource their filtration process and stuff. We have worked with a number of other airlines as well, Kuwait Airways, Jazeera Airline, and just to name a few in the Middle East. We have worked with Alpha Aviation as well, the Air Arabia's training provider, and obviously we worked with a number of other European organizations as well, like Skywings and so many other ones as well. So yeah, definitely we have aligned ourselves to be providing everything from B2C to B2B solutions to all our airline partners and university partnerships. So that's something we're going to talk about it in a while as well.
Okay, fantastic. And so, having had this long history, having this really kind of quality training infrastructure, this global coverage, it's really good to see Airways Aviation having weathered this pandemic, and now as we're coming out of this pandemic, can you share maybe some recent developments and announcements of kind of what Airways Aviation has recently been up to? Because I'm seeing a lot of announcement and news out there that the group is expanding again. So it would be great to hear more about that.
Definitely, Max. Thank you so much. And yes, definitely pandemic. I mean, nobody can deny it. The pandemic was definitely a difficult time for the aviation industry. Most of the big aviation organizations have also felt, that the pandemic was really bad. But then again, I think we've all survived. We've reached the end of the pandemic, and we've started to see a huge, basically a huge improvement in the leads. not just B2B, but B2C as well. We're now seeing airlines contacting us again for student recruitment. Over the last few months, literally, I've personally myself dealt with some of our previous airline contacts who had, obviously went on standby for a while, but we've started getting them back again. We're starting to have airlines contacting us, asking for our graduates' data. Just last week, I had the pleasure of signing a reference document for one of my favorite students, Idris. He contacted me saying, I got a job in British Airline, one of our previous graduates in Europe. And he asked me to sign a letter verifying that he completed his training with us. Another person contacted me. His name is Alice. He was hired by Jet2. And this is just over the last 2 weeks. I signed his letter. He sent me a document to sign and verify that he's one of our existing, our students and alumni. And yeah, so what I can see is personally, I can see students calling me, telling me that they've been hired, which is really, really good. I've been extremely upset about some of the students who graduated right when the pandemic started. Students who started their training during the pandemic, they're fine. We had nothing to worry about them because we knew that there's going to be this massive pilot shortage right at the end of the pandemic. But I did feel bad about the students who graduated right in the beginning stages of the pandemic, but I'm actually seeing a lot of our graduates calling us and informing us that they've been hired in Europe and in the Middle East as well. I just heard about one of my students from India who said he got hired in Indigo Airline literally last month. So it's really, we're all doing great right now, not just us, everybody in the aviation industry. The airlines are expanding, and so is Airways Aviation. So Airways Aviation has now opened up its newest location in Turkey. 28th of Feb was our first course intake. We're now providing the basic foundation course, the private pilot license, and a full modular pathway into Australia and France, starting in Turkey. That's one of our newest accomplishments. I should also mention about our setup in Lebanon. Now, during the pandemic, not many people must have heard about our new location in Lebanon because of the pandemic, but surprisingly, Airways Aviation Academy in Lebanon was actually doing very well throughout the pandemic. We recruited a number of students locally from Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, this neighborhood. And we actually not just survived, but we actually did very well. And that's what I'm extremely happy about. Everybody was complaining about the pandemic, but what I can tell you is even during the pandemic, we had 8 to 10 students joining our pilot training courses in Lebanon. And throughout the year and a half of pandemic, we had a good number of students. So now that the pandemic is completely done with, we're only seeing the numbers increase. So these are some of the most attractive things which happened over the last few weeks. Turkey being one of my most personally, it was my personally favorite, and I love Turkey. So I was working on Turkey project for a long time. But let me talk about the most biggest news, which Airways Aviation is proud of. We signed a massive contract, and it's actually with CAE. So Airways Aviation and CAE have partnered, and we are now providing training to the German military. Yes, that's correct, German military. And basically, it's a very, very long contract. It's a massive contract for Airways Aviation and CAE, and the contract is with CAE Defense and Security Department. And what we're now going to be doing is literally the German Air Force is going to be using our facilities and CAE's facilities. It's a joint contract. So that's one of the biggest things which is happening. You guys can actually read more about it on our Airways Aviation News tab if you go to the website. And not just that we've signed a contract, we've actually started receiving students. We've started receiving their first aircrafts. So as of 3 days ago, we literally had, Airways Aviation in France, Montpellier, welcomed the first aircraft of CAE in Montpellier Airport in our campus. So this was one of the most exciting news I had to share with you.
Really, congratulations on that. I've been following you very closely because I think also going into the pandemic, I always saw Airways Aviation because, as you've mentioned, you have this broad spectrum of training that you provide, as well as having a broad global coverage and having worked with both B2C and B2B, kind of going into this pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, everyone in the industry was very much affected by it. But Airways Aviation had that long history of having worked in the B2C segment. So when the B2B demand kind of went away or significantly reduced, Airways Aviation had that experience and had that network to build out the B2C business component to it. What it sounds like really you used this pandemic to further expand Airways Aviation's global coverage with these new bases that you've mentioned in Lebanon and in Turkey. That's really fantastic to hear.
Our global founder of Airways Aviation, the chairman of Airways Aviation Group, Romy Hawat, he had this vision, and right before the pandemic, we had a vision, and then when the pandemic hit, we had to realign ourselves. We had to understand what was happening with the aviation industry across the globe, and we actually took a few months to create a new strategy. And that strategy was to obviously we had to reduce a few locations where we saw there was no requirement as such. Obviously the Brexit, and there was a number of things which happened right before the pandemic. So we created a new strategy, and yes, it took us a while, but we're doing very well now with this new strategy, and it's working very well. And we're following Mr. Romy Hawat's vision of setting up brand new Airways Aviation Foundation schools across the globe. So not just Lebanon and Turkey, these were just a few we did during the pandemic, but our vision and our plan is to set up foundation schools, basically Airways Aviation licensees across the globe. We have Nigeria, Pakistan, we have Senegal, we have a number of ongoing discussions basically, and many more Airways Aviation Foundation schools are going to be added to our website this year. So yeah, that is one of the biggest announcements I would want to make. Definitely, I think the biggest announcement to this day is that the Airways Aviation has now announced training support of entry-level German Air Force under the contract which was awarded with CAE. So this is definitely one of our biggest news. But then Turkey and Lebanon and all of these are going to be feeders to our main flight training locations in Australia and France. And the way how we see it is these foundation schools across the globe, students all across the globe are not necessarily thinking of going straight into the full flight training. They want to test the water before they jump into the ocean. And that's exactly what we're providing them with. We're providing interested people with Airways in a box. It's a licensee, right? So we will set it up. We will create these foundation schools for you. We will train you. And obviously you will be trading as Airways Aviation's location as a licensee holder. And that also gives opportunity to students in your country. For example, if I'm talking to someone in Pakistan as of today, instead of him flying all the way to Turkey or Lebanon or one of our locations to do the foundation course or to start with the private pilot or the integrated course, what we're offering him is to complete the foundation course close to home.
Yeah.
Make sure that he is eligible to be a pilot, because a lot of students think it's glamorous. Everybody wants to be a pilot, but then again, do they have the right aptitude to be a pilot? You need to, and more importantly, more than the European audience, our non-European audience, right? Especially the parents who are the decision makers. The parents want to know if my son is worth being, okay, let me just say it in a very simple way. A lot of parents want to know if investing such a huge amount of money is worth it.
Yeah.
So these foundation courses actually give those parents some kind of, an idea if their kids are ready to be a pilot. So that's why the foundation courses have worked so well in some of our previous locations like Kuwait. We had a massive location. We used to conduct our foundation courses in Kuwait. We used to conduct our foundation courses also in Singapore, Malaysia. Slow and steadily, we will be looking into restarting foundation courses in some of these locations as well. And we've also had very successful foundation courses in some of these locations, including we've conducted foundation courses in Montenegro, with dozens of students, and we had a foundation course in the UK Oxford Airport as well. So from our experience, we know that this model works. And as Max, you were telling me when we met in Ras Al Khaimah during the conference, I think we were applying the concept a few years in advance. We started out rolling out the program a little bit too early. I think the market is now more ready, and it's the best time to relaunch our foundation schools across the globe, basically. Yeah.
I think, this, I can only support this vision that the chairman of Airways Aviation has, and which you are successfully implementing, and which you also have the history with. I think for anyone listening or watching today, so Airways Aviation has a history of studying this model, of having opened up these foundation schools in different countries and learned a lot from that process. But what I can tell you from our side, for example, at AFM AERO, we have a database, or we've mapped out the entire global pilot training infrastructure. And so 70% of the world's flight schools are in developed nations. So, and this was going into the pandemic. 70% of all the world's flight schools are in places such as the US. We're talking about like south of Europe, Australia. The very popular flight training destinations, which everyone knows. But 87% of the world's population doesn't live in those regions of the world, right? So the majority of people do not live there. And especially with pilot training being so much more expensive than, in most cases, university, trying to convince a son or a daughter and their parents to start their pilot training in a foreign country for a large amount of money, without having done some sort of foundation course or some initial
kind of assurance,
introduction is extremely difficult. But the majority of the industry works that way, right? The majority of flight schools around the globe, when they're getting students from other countries, there might be a lot of Zoom calls, especially now in the pandemic, right? Like flight schools haven't been able to go and travel to other countries, do seminars, and kind of answer questions and meet their interested applicants because of travel restrictions and because of all of these different components. So I definitely fully agree with the vision. And as I mentioned, so if I'm not mistaken, Airways Aviation has been doing this already since when?
We've been doing this for quite some time, actually. I would say 2014.
Yeah, 2014.
Officially, yes, I would say 2014, technically, yeah.
And so for anyone listening or watching today, how is there a possibility for someone to join the Airways Aviation kind of global network of pilot training organizations or pilot training institutions? Like, how would who would be someone that could join you, and how could they get more information about what Airways Aviation is trying to do and kind of broaden its global coverage?
So yes, definitely anybody listening to us right now who is interested in becoming an Airways Aviation licensee, I guess, yes, the first step would be to definitely get in touch with us. We will have to obviously go through some of the audits and check if you are eligible to get the licensee of Airways Aviation. But the procedure is quite simple, actually. You get in touch with us. There's basic application form. We want to get to know you guys a little bit, the location, the city. We will share our business plan, our vision and mission, and so on. And we have the entire standard documents which talk about how to run the Airways Aviation licensee, and we can give you the entire setup. And basically, yes, there is a certain percentage of fees which you will be collecting which goes towards the royalties and so on. But we can go into the financial discussions, and at that point, once we have accepted the application, and if we believe you are the right candidate, then yes, we can give you the entire details. But to get in touch with us, you can just simply email us dubai@airwaysaviation.com. We're managing all of the licensees from our central location here in Dubai, which is also the office where the parent company is located. So anybody looking to join our ever-growing network of Airways Aviation licensees can get in touch with me or directly send us an email, dubai@airwaysaviation.com, and we can provide you more details on how to be an Airways Aviation licensee.
Perfect. And just something which came to my mind, Rizwan. What would be the profile of someone who might be interested and who might be considered? Will it be, for example, let's say organizations which are ground schools now, or maybe existing pilots? What about flight schools? Could potentially flight school join your network? Kind of what would be the profile of potential people who could join your network?
So we are definitely looking at someone who can deliver and maintain the standards of Airways Aviation. So we're not blocking a certain person from applying just because he's not in the aviation industry as of now. I wouldn't say that would be a criteria as such. The basic criteria is someone who is motivated to run an aviation foundation course, someone who understands the importance of aviation in this time and age. We're looking for someone. We will basically do all the training. Even if a person is not fully aware of the aviation industry, we will get them up to speed. We will do the entire onboarding sessions. We physically go to the location and make sure for the first few months things are running, and we're providing that entire support. So we're not very keen on looking at someone who's already in aviation. Flight schools or organizations who are already running ground school programs, organizations who are already in the aviation industry, definitely it'll be a lot more easier for them. But we've also had interest from companies who are completely outside the aviation industry, but are extremely motivated and passionate to do something in this ever-growing aviation industry. Because let's be honest, in the next 10, 15 years, if you check out all the statistics from leading aircraft manufacturing companies, Airbus and Boeings, and some of these big companies, just based on the orders placed, we know very well that the aviation industry is going to require thousands and thousands of new pilots every year. So we know for a fact aviation is inevitable. You're not gonna be able to stop aviation industry from expanding. And I think the pandemic has just proved that. Even with the pandemic for the last year and a half, 2 years, we're now seeing everything going back to normal. Airports being busier than ever. Some of the major airlines are reporting that they're going back to their pre-pandemic levels. So yes, I would welcome every single one who thinks they are able to manage an aviation school if they are interested to get in touch with us. And we will obviously do the training sessions, filter them, and anybody interested can actually become an Airways Aviation Foundation School licensee.
But Rizwan, I'm gonna try and see if I can challenge you a bit here, because I've been hearing from a lot of different organizations in this industry, especially in the West of the world, that it has become their cost of customer acquisition, their CAC, to recruit a new student has gone up significantly, and that the pilot profession in a lot of countries has kind of suffered in terms of reputation, right? So in terms of young people, when they consider becoming a pilot, are they still seeing kind of this very well-paid profession? Are they still seeing, job security? Because especially in the pandemic, right, so many pilots were let go. Since Airways Aviation has kind of this global coverage and is taking in or is training students from all over the world, and so many aspiring pilots as well, what would you say in regards to how do you see the pilot profession being viewed across the world by different aspiring pilots?
So from my point of view, I've been talking to students for the last 7.5 years, as an admissions consultant, as a counselor. One thing I haven't seen change during the pandemic is students aspiring to be pilots. Just because of the pandemic, I did not see, a huge change in their aspiration. Pilot training is something which is so deep inside a child's brain. Someone who wants to be a pilot, he's been dreaming about it for years. They are generally not very scared of anything, and that's something the pandemic proved as well. There were students, yes, there were parents, the decision makers, people who are paying for the courses. Yes, they were a bit scared when they saw thousands of pilots being let go. But I think when I talk to students between 17 and 25 years age who are potential pilots, they're actually not scared, and they do understand that this is temporary. And from what I see around the world, we're continuing to get student inquiries. In fact, the numbers have tripled in the last 2 months. Uh, and I still see the genuine interest. And on top of that, pilot training is all about passion. Students who have the passion to be a pilot, they are still going to do pilot training. They will not be demotivated by some negative news. The last 2 years, obviously, a lot of platforms have also, unfortunately, pushed a lot of negative news, which was not even true. A lot of news you guys probably must have heard about in the last year and a half, that the aviation industry is not going to recover, etc., and blah, blah. But all of that was wrong. We have already seen that the aviation industry is recovering, and pilot shortage is again being discussed on so many forums. So what I say is that people who want to be pilots will continue to be pilots, and they'll continue to be aspiring to be a pilot. And that's not going to change. And I don't think so anytime soon we're going to see any major negative effect. We're going to continue to see the graphs climbing. We're going to continue to see aviation industry doubling every 15 years, as it has for the last many decades. And I think we've now finally, you know what, Max, let me tell you something about myself, right? So when I did my pilot training, I arrived in the academy. I'm sitting in this pilot training academy, and I'm all excited and passionate. And I'm telling you, my family was against it. I had a difficult time getting into pilot training. My relatives were against it. If my relatives are listening, I'm sorry, but I understand they had their points, they had their reasons. And this is 2008, 2009. 2008, the world had just gone through this big recession, the 2008 famous recession. And I started my training early 2009, and everybody was telling me that the aviation industry is going through a really bad time. And I remember hearing all of that. I remember arriving in the academy, everybody who was against me and telling me, don't do a pilot training, you're not going to get a job, the industry is suffering. I mean, it did not change my opinion. It did not change my decision. I still went ahead in the middle of the worst global recession. It did not stop me from joining. So same way, someone who's passionate about becoming a pilot, somebody who really wants to be a pilot, he will continue to be a pilot. And it's not gonna be something he's gonna quit, because becoming a pilot is a dream which I remember a very famous person telling me that if it's the kind of dream you see while you're sleeping, it's not right. And he said that if aviation is the kind of dream which doesn't let you sleep, then welcome to the world of aviation. And this is exactly what he told me. I remember, yes, there's going to be a few struggles. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be a piece of cake. Yes, there's going to be some difficulties during your training. You have to be passionate. You have to be persistent. And, passion, persistence, and patience. These are the 3 P's to be a pilot, as my instructor used to tell me. And yes, I do realize that it was difficult during my training, but you have to keep pushing. And that's what I've normally noticed. Students who have the passion and who have the qualities of being persistent, and who also need to be a bit patient from time to time. And yeah, welcome to the world of aviation, as my instructor said.
Rizwan, I feel like you're trying to recruit me to join Airways Aviation as a student pilot. So I really admire the passion that you have for this profession, or for this skill set, and for the organization. And I can confirm from what we're seeing across the different platforms that we're operating, that there does seem to be somewhat of a disconnect in terms of how the pilot profession is being viewed in some more developed nations versus some of the developing nations. So still, even with the pandemic, the pilot profession is still highly regarded in some developing nations, and there's still all of these individuals which want to go and do their training, but their pilot training institution is, you know, far away in another country, in another time zones most often. And so, you know, this Airways Aviation concept of foundation schools, of feeder schools is, in my opinion, is really, really well timed. Airways Aviation is most probably one of the most experienced groups in that regard. So I absolutely thank you for sharing your insights with us today. And if anyone wants to learn more about Airways Aviation, please check out their website, www.airwaysaviation.com, or connect with Rizwan on LinkedIn by searching for Rizwan Taj. Or if you're on Instagram, I can also highly recommend following Rizwan on Instagram, which you can be found under, I believe, pilot_Rizwan Taj. Yeah, you do some really great and inspirational Instagram posts and reels and kind of this content, because I think this is especially what the industry needs, kind of ambassadors in this industry which show the passion and the fun of becoming a pilot. And I think the content that you produce and that Airways Aviation produces is really a key driver in terms of igniting that passion and making it as easy as possible to explore the passion for individuals in their home country, or as close as possible to their home country that they can.
Thank you so much, Max. And I have to, before you let me go, I have to also mention everybody who's listening. I've been a big fan of aviationfly.com website. The AFM.AERO is my personal favorite. I literally get the best and the most beautiful updates every Mondays. And I think it's my go-to website when I think of anything to do with aviation news. I think, Max, I would definitely want to congratulate you, and especially your team as well. They're doing a great job under your vision, under your guidance. I think you've got a great vision, the news website and the way you've created the database under your website. I think seriously, there's a lot of people who are relying on you to provide us the most up-to-date news. And thank you so much. As I always mention, the most reliable and the most up-to-date aviation news, I would always go to afm.aero. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the kind words, Rizwan. For anyone who's listening or watching, so at AFM.AERO, we're trying to connect the pilot training industry in a similar way to how the aviation industry has connected the world, by essentially building digital infrastructure across the different platforms that we operate to make the information flow between pilot training organizations across the world a lot, or different stakeholders, suppliers and airline training departments, as smooth as possible, and kind of connect everyone as much as possible. So thank you for the kind words, Rizwan. And
I just remembered my wife's quotations the other day, and she likes to call you the LinkedIn of aviation. So yeah, you're doing really well. Thank you so much. You're bringing the aviation world together. You're connecting people. I remember literally talking to Max about a couple of topics, and you always know someone in every department, every industry. Every time I talk to you about something, and I'm always going back with a lot of new information. Every time I talk to you, there's always this, something new I learned today. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Rizwan.
Lovely, as always. It's been amazing talking to you. Looking forward to meeting you more often.
Perfect. Yeah, I hope to see you. Maybe that's a good point to kind of end this on. So if people connect with you kind of online, what is like your preferred method for individuals who are interested to just get in contact with you, or in this Airways Aviation Global Network? How do they best reach you? Over what platform do you prefer?
So majority of our students, I think, are contacting us on our Instagram global page. So we've got Airways Aviation Global, we've got Airways Aviation Turkey, Airways Aviation Lebanon, Airways Aviation France, and Airways Aviation Australia. We've got different Instagram pages, but we have a global Instagram page. And I would say the best way to reach out to us is, yes, you can definitely call us, email us, but one of the best ways, I'm sure I'm talking to the new generation who want to be more active and get live updates. So I think Instagram would be the best way. Or you can directly email me, dubai@airwaysaviation.com. That would be the best way to get in touch with me. Or as Mr. Max just mentioned, you can always check out pilot_Rizwan Taj. You can directly get in touch with me on my WhatsApp. My WhatsApp number is mentioned on the Instagram page, even on the Airways Aviation Global page as well. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with us. And we have a very simple process. If a student contacts us wanting to know more about our full flight training program in France or Australia, we will give him a call directly. We don't just send a random email with some copy paste generic information. We are actually quite proud about the fact that we call everyone. We organize video calls, and we will talk to you, understand your requirements, and give you your tailored solutions. I'm going to ask you about which nationality you are, where do you plan on working as a pilot, because not everybody does the pilot training in the same way. Depending on a number of factors, you might want to choose between one of our locations, Airways Aviation Turkey or Lebanon or France. I mean, one of those might be better for you. So based on your background, based on your education, based on a number of things, we will make a recommendation if integrated or modular is better for you. So it all starts with getting in touch with us, and we will have an assessment, and we will give you what's best for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Rizwan. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you so much. You have a lovely afternoon as well, Max, and looking forward. Take care.
Take care.